The situation is collapsing faster than we contain it. General Halvuff sighed with a somewhat shaky voice. The collective is continuing to gain worlds each week. We project that they'll reach the core territories within the month. How bad is it looking on the ground? Queen Aria asked reluctantly, staring grimly at the holopad containing the more detailed report. What's it like for our men? Not good. Halvuff shook his head, rubbing his solid black eyes for a bit. Attacks are viewed as punishment by their superiors, and the order to hold ground is enough to cause mass desertions. The collective are just overwhelming us every time we're engaged. Is there anything we can do? Aria demanded in shock, tossing the pad aside. Haven't we found something to give us an edge? We're still investigating, but so far, we haven't found an answer. The general was clearly struggling to get that sentence out. I might have one. Aria muttered after long, silent pondering. The humans. Them. Halvuff's mandibles opened slightly in surprise. Why? How could a bunch of backwards mammals just now leaving their homeworld help us? I can tell you. Aria looked around for a moment before leaning closer to her officer and lowering her voice. But you must give me your agreement that everything you hear is classified. Nobody but level 5 personnel are authorized to hear this. Yes, Your Highness. Halvuff was taken aback, not expecting this at all. United Nations Space Force Facility. Fort Bush, Luna, Seoul. Lieutenant Commander William Malkoff immediately stood attention, nearly slamming his glass on the side table when his superior, Colonel Franklin, entered his room. At ease, Commander. How's R&R? Couldn't come any sooner, sir. William gave a shrugging grin, sitting back down in his bed. Felt like I couldn't breathe for months. Well, that's good, because I have excellent news for you. Franklin smiled. Congratulations, Commander. You've earned a 98 on the Enhanced Infantry Platform Training Program, placing you second of your class. Fuck yeah. William let out a triumphant grin, and then took a long swig of his whiskey. Even though he kept his grin, when William looked at Franklin, the feel from the commander was much different. All right, sir. What happens now? Franklin took in a long inhale before he answered. Direct orders from the brass. Humanity has just declared war on the Yad Collective. You're assigned to the 4th Heavy Infantry Division. Your immediate commander will fill you in. Move out. William stood and gave a salute. Yes, sir. On my way. SCM-11 is 7B orbit. All right, test left arm servos. The technician directed. William flexed his arm and fingers. With distinct whirring sounds, the suit responded fluidly and exactly to his movements. Excellent. Next stage, let's begin neural interface checkoff. Deploy your rocket launcher. Using his thoughts, decoded and transmitted by the implant on William's brain in a one-way stream, the rocket launcher on the right of his back whirred up and then rotated down to face forward, intruding on a portion of William's peripheral vision. When completed, the onboard tactical assistant announced, "Rocket ready." Good. The technician nodded, tapping his computer. Holster it and bring out grenade launcher. With the same loud and heavy-sounding whirring as the rocket launcher, the grenade launcher appeared on William's left peripheral, followed by his T-HUD, drawing the projected trajectory of the 40 mm rounds. Grenades ready. Still green? Awesome. The technician grinned. Now, the real question. Holster M49 and spin up your Marauder 2 plasma guns. As soon as the M49 was properly packed away on the left side of his back, William lifted up his arms. The tri-barreled guns that could easily be mistaken for regular miniguns gave off a high-pitched whine before the barrels began to spin. Clear! The technician yelled at the top of his lungs. Everybody nearby repeated the word with similar volume. With the all clear, William fired off a round each from both guns. They impacted the specially made targeting squares above him, the impact sites nothing but red-hot slag now. They were promptly moved away by the automated dollies to prevent that slag from dripping down. All green, Commander, the technician declared proudly, stepping aside. Just wait a few seconds while I strap some HEDP 40 mics and some tandem AT rockets on you. When you're loaded up, head to the hangar bay. Deployment is within half an hour. Robotic arms appeared from above William, carefully removing the armored plates protecting the ammo bays. One set loaded up the M49 with the aforementioned grenades, all connected through disintegrating belts, finishing with 10+1 already chambered to work with. The rocket bay was loaded individually, resulting in 2+1 to play with there. As soon as the armored plates were reinstalled and all the testing cables removed and beauty plates fastened, William proceeded over to the hangar bay. The sheer monstrous weight of his Airs MX-1A enhanced infantry platform, more commonly called the battlesuit, caused his steps to thunder across the floor. It was even heavy enough to make those nearby to feel their bones rattle. He was joined by other pilot graduates of the program, each coming from their own diagnostic stations. William knows that a full squad of them can take on an entire army by themselves. HEDP grenades for mass slaughter of infantry and light vehicles, tandem rockets for armored threats, and the amazing Marauder 2 plasma guns for general-purpose carnage. As soon as he and the other EIP operators entered the hangar bay, there was far more activity than William expected. Infantry and vehicles were being loaded up onto heavy air transports, and the deployment alarm was going off. "Was the technician off? There you are!" a sergeant shouted, running up to the group. "The collective launched a surprise attack on coalition forces and have just achieved a breakthrough. We need to get down there now or all blue forces will be overrun, and we lose this planet. Get to your squads! Go!" As if a bunch of people started slamming sledgehammers against metal together, the EIP operators scattered and ran off to their assigned squads. It didn't take long for William to find his. After worrying whether the Eagle's loading ramp could handle his weight, he reached the passenger section and sat down on 2 seats at the end. "Fucking Christ," a private muttered after looking over William. "Remind me not to piss you off. Bet it feels nice having thick titanium alloy armor around you," a corporal said sarcastically. "I think only enemy armor could have a chance at punching through that shit, and even then, you'd sooner die from the impact than it actually going through." A harsh buzzing sounded off across the entire bay, and the ramp closed securely. William could feel his weight shifting around as the Eagle took off and exited the hangar bay. If he heard right, it'd only be 10 minutes before they're on the surface of this world. "All right, everybody, secure your shit and listen up," Squad Leader Captain John said firmly above the noise. "We're heading down ahead of schedule because those collective assholes decided to launch an offensive faster than we'd like. Worse, they broke through a section of the front line, and they're already shoving even more forces through it. We don't have much time before they cut off reinforcements and begin surrounding the coalition forces that are engaged. Our job is a hot drop. Link up with coalition forces and act as the fucking shield. The rest of our boys will be dropped along predicted paths and will be responsible for killing this momentum before it gains any steam. You get all that, boys? Collective fucked things up, so we're here to unfuck it. What are we expecting, sir?" The private spoke up, nervous. "Shit ton of infantry backed up by armored vehicles," John answered. "As long as coalition anti-air guns stay online, we don't have to worry about CAS. And our Navy is linking up with the coalition soon too, so we also don't need to worry about orbital assets either. What about the new guy?" The corporal cocked his thumb over to William. "We here just jerking off and making him look good? Ares is still experimental." John glared at the corporal. "If that shit goes fewbar, he'll be back to basics like the rest of us, which means he needs brothers watching his back like he would ours. Got it?" "Yes, sir," the corporal answered. "Visual on our drop point," the pilot informed over the intercom. "Get ready for insertion in 3. "Final call, boys!" John shouted, holding his rifle up. "Lock and load, secure your shit, and let's get ready to be knights in shining armor for the coalition. Any more questions?" The whole squad, William included, shouted in unison. "No, sir. And who exactly is going to be the ones to fuck over the collective?" John continued. "Us, sir," the squad answered. A loud bang and a sudden jerk of the transport caused John to be thrown to the ground and the others rocking in their seats. William heard the loud clattering of rounds hitting the hull. "Everybody hold on!" the pilot shouted. "We got bandits coming after us! Why in the ever-fucking-hell is there aircraft in my goddamn airspace?" John demanded at the pilot. "They're not supposed to be here! Coalition AA is swatting them like crazy!" the pilot answered frantically. "It's like they don't give a shit a OH shit!" One more hard jerk and the sound of rushing air deafened William. Whatever happened, half of the Eagle got torn away. He could see the bright blue sky shining down on an arid landscape past the jagged edges of the shattered hull. The corporal was hanging on for dear life, but he couldn't hold on, and was sucked out. Without a parachute, he's in for a slow death. The private was losing his shit, gripping the sides of his seat with white knuckles, eyes closed and his lips firing off rapid prayers for salvation. "Fuck!" John shouted above the whole cacophony of noise. "Grab your chutes! This is our drop point now! William, you got a special one, right here!" Following where John was pointing, William got out of his seats and made his way over. Instead of a backpack, there was a large metal object with what was clearly thrusters on it. Of course, William was wondering what kind of parachute would be possible to handle his weight. Instead of a chute, he has landing thrusters. A self-contained unit with its own fusion reactor. All he has to do is secure to his frame, and he's good to go. "Let's go, Private!" John shouted, slamming a parachute into the man's chest. "We're off to live another day!" Without a word, the private hastily put on the parachute and followed John's cues. William noticed that John had yet another parachute in his hands. Why? As soon as John, the private, and 3 other survivors of the squad jumped out, William was left. Thankfully, All he had to do was get in position and guide the metal bands onto specially shaped bolts of his chest. Keeping his hands on it, the bolts would prevent the thrusters from blasting away from him. Jumping out of the wreckage, William made sure to stay feet down. The T-HUD informed him that the landing thrusters were good to go and began automated descent procedures. With a loud roar, they slowed his descent rapidly. As it did, William surveyed the field. The pilot was right. Despite Coalition anti-air firing off everything they had, the Collective's Air Force was continuing to flood the skies, ignoring the heavy casualties they were sustaining. It's raining metal and fire as far as he can see. It took him a minute to finally reach ground, thudding hard and leaving a semi-visible crater on impact with his thrusters kicking up a dust storm. Rapidly tossing it aside, William readied his plasma guns and went to get his bearings. He was somewhat close to the drop point, some kind of sports field outside a once nice-looking suburban neighborhood. The green, slanted pillar of smoke was still visible high in the air. "William, radio check," John crackled to life on the radio. "You alive?" "Alive and ready, sir," William replied, immediately moving to cover. "I managed to save Corporal Smith's mouthy ass just in time, though the landing was rough," John explained, the sounds of gunfire somewhat audible in the background. "Including you and me, 7 of us made it. We're already en route to the Coalition's main command post. Get your ass over there and let's get a plan put together. Oh, and this should be obvious, but if you encounter any Collective forces, you are weapons-free. Understood?" William grinned widely in eager excitement at hearing the authorization. Now that he knows where he is, William planned out his route towards the CP. Just a lovely stroll through a battle-strewn, utterly wrecked neighborhood, nothing demanding. After a quick systems check, just in case, he began his route. Pushing aside the burned-out husks of local vehicles and bulldozing through various rubble, he found his first action several blocks into the area. The squid-headed Collective, their annoying squeals akin to pigs, had taken up a firing line and were unloading on a nearly flattened house. William could see ore and infantry inside, pinned down. Making sure his auto-translator was engaged, he switched over to a provided radio channel. "This is Lieutenant Commander William Malkoff, UN Space Force. I'm going to hit the pigs from behind. Confirm your targets before firing. This is Captain HFY, 17th Rifle Corps," an Airran voice answered. "Even a second of distraction is enough. Please do what you can." That's all he needed. Grenades ready. Firing off 2 rounds, scores of Collective squid pigs were eviscerated and tossed aside from the grenades. Now comes the main action. With the T-HUD drawing crosshairs for each of his plasma guns, he spun them up and unleashed 858 rounds per minute of destructive plasma carnage. From the original Marauder project of the 1990 AS, the plasma weapon was heavy artillery and successively launched an actual plasma projectile miles from the gun itself, recorded as being extremely destructive conventionally and electronically, alongside reaching 3,000 kilometers per s projectile speed. But each experiment was extremely costly and required a huge and immobile power system. Now, with the mass production of pack-sized fusion generators, directed energy weapons were now a distinct possibility. As such, the Marauder 2 project was activated with the goal of downsizing the previous iteration to man-portable weapons. The plasma balls William fired crackled with lightning on impact. Now able to divert full power to the guns, instead of only enough for testing, the plasma itself was like bullets tipped with high explosives. And on top of that, each impact exploded with high-energy X-rays that can utterly annihilate any nearby electronics. As it stands, it promises to be a weapon with unprecedented destructive ability. The ground was glassed. The bodies of Collective squids were cooked, if blackened, calamari, and any electronics they had were undeniably scrambled if not melted. Some of them managed to fire off some shots. The kinetic dampening shield installed on his suit lowered their round's kinetic energy drastically, making it sound like a car kicking up gravel on your car on the highway. "All clear," William reported after making a thorough scan of the area, his plasma gun slowly spinning menacingly as blue-tinted smoke wisped out of the barrels. "I'm heading to you." Understood." Hayui stammered somewhat. William let himself chuckle while he was still out of earshot. Sounds like he made one hell of an impression on them. He was halfway to their position when a loud roar of engines and the sounds of a falling building interrupted him. It was a Collective vehicle, tracked, blocky, and had a pretty intimidating gun mounted on top, pointed at him. "Danger. Hostile tank," his TA warned. Before William could ready his rocket, the tank fired at him. His shields managed to reduce the energy enough, but he was still flung backwards several feet and slid on the ground before coming to a stop. Whatever alloy this titanium armor is, it's fucking tough as hell. Danger. Shields offline. William's only play was to pretend he's dead. If that tank fires another round at full kinetic energy, his suit won't block it. Eyes fixated on the vehicle and blocking out the distressed cries from HFY and his remaining squad, he needs that tank to bite. And after several long, tense moments, that tank swiveled its gun over to HFY. Dumbass doesn't know the rule of double tapping. Rocket ready. Firing the tandem round, it punched right into the side of that tank. And with that massive, visceral jet of flame billowing up, soon followed by a deafening wave of crackling, William must have hit its ammo bay. With his shields down, he'd rather not continue tempting fate. He rushed over to where HFY and the others are and hunkered down. Eventually, a fuel line must have ignited. The tank blew up spectacularly. By the maker, how are you still alive? HFY asked in shocked wonder, the arachnoid's face showing clear stunned surprise even to a human. Right as William was about to answer, his shield generator let off a high-pitched whine, and then his entire form billowed in a layer of energy for a second before returning to normal. Kinetic shields. Of course, one of HFY's subordinates exclaimed. But how did you get the Yathi to share their technology with you already? Even though they couldn't see under his helmet, William grinned proudly. They didn't. We took some scraps and reverse engineered it. This is a human design. An alien race that just left their homeworld already made their own shields? Another subordinate shrugged sarcastically in disbelief. No, you must have made a deal with the Yathi. Disagree, HFY said simply, staring at William's plasma guns. Even the Yathi don't have those kinds of guns. Nobody does. I think William is telling the truth. All right, we're getting distracted, William interrupted, looking beyond their position. I need to get to the Coalition command post. You guys heading there too? Now we are. HFY chuckled, patting his vest. This mag in my gun? All I got left. Same for my men here. One is seriously wounded. Much as I hate to say this, but I think we'll need an escort. No problem. William nodded. You're the squad lead. I'll defer to you. Let me know when you're ready. We'll need just a minute. HFY nodded, already walking over to his wounded subordinate.